Hello, and welcome to the Autism Resources Kawartha podcast. I'm Matt Garrity, and I'm so happy to be here with you. In this episode, I sit down with Natalie to talk about her late-in-life ADHD and autism diagnoses, and how that journey overlaps with her daughters. Natalie shares openly about sensory challenges, parenting while neurodiverse, and the mix of grief and relief that comes with finally having a name for lifelong experiences. We dive into what masking looks like, why labels can help, and how important it is to break down stereotypes of autism, especially for women and girls. The Autism Resources Kawartha podcast is a series of conversations with local autistic people and the people who love them, right here in Kawartha Lakes. And it's all thanks to Cardinal Home Services. Thank you so much. Check them out at cardinalhome.ca. So join us for a new episode every Tuesday wherever you listen to podcasts. Follow us on Spotify, subscribe on YouTube, and finally, enjoy this conversation with Natalie. So what's your experience with autism?
All right. Well, it's sort of new to me because I first went on sort of a diagnosis journey about, I guess it was a year ago, kind of classic in some sense of as a late diagnosed ADHD woman, but a lot of times I feel like moms are finding out through their kids. But I happened to come across like a reel that my friend posted, and it was something about laundry, and I was like, oh, doesn't everyone do that? And I was like, oh, like I didn't mean that to be dismissive. Oh my gosh, blah, blah, blah. Then I started doing, I'm like, but wait, what is ADHD? Let me go down this little rabbit hole. Then I'm like, oh, I think I have ADHD. And then
When was that?
That was last year, basically. Oh, yeah. Literally beginning of last year. Beginning of last year when I got like the official ADHD diagnosis. And then once you kind of get down that rabbit hole, they start sort of serving you neurodiverse reels, which then, there was some like ASD stuff coming up, and I'm like, okay. But I didn't really like go into that yet. And then once I learned about ADHD, I started seeing some things in my daughter. I'm like, oh, okay. I think this is connecting here. And so I'm like, okay, I'm going to see if I can get her like kind of diagnosed as soon as possible to help her in the school system. And once we had the initial sort of appointment with the psychologist, she, when we were describing her, she was saying, there's some like ASD things coming up. And I'm like, ASD, okay. ASD, autism spectrum disorder. Okay, that's what that means. Like, my head's like going, like, oh, okay. Oh, I had no idea because like most people, they don't know enough about it. And only the typical things that maybe like our generation grew up with, just the very standard, like the boy in the classroom, who is maybe non-verbal or, just like a very like narrow view of it. And so once I started, once she said that, then of course I just like deep dove that, like real deep. And then I was like, oh, okay, I think this is fitting. And the more I started researching it, I was like, this is sounding a little familiar. And then I was like, before my daughter was even like officially diagnosed, ADHD, so both ADHD and autism, I was like pretty convinced for myself. Sure. And so then got the diagnosis was confirmed. And then, but I remember midway in the process, we were going through the sensory, like kind of sensitivities. And like it almost became a joke with the person doing the assessment that I was like, but me too. Like me too. Yeah, what about food? What about this? And I was like, me too. Yeah. And so it was really like a full year. Now it's almost kind of like 2 years because now I have my official diagnosis of like ADHD. So both as well. So yeah, I guess whatever the original question was of experiences, like it's like my experiences, my lived experience as well as now my daughter. And then if I look back, I'm like, no, it's all in the family. So it's like all around me. And I didn't even know it.
Hey, it's Matt Garrity from the Autism Resources Kawartha podcast. I want to tell you about one of my family's favorite things to do in Kawartha Lakes, the Crazy Creative program at the Kawartha Art Gallery. It's totally free, open to all ages, and every Saturday the gallery turns into a space where you can express your imagination with model magic. I've taken my kids countless times, and we always walk away with big smiles. I've also talked to artists on this podcast who are autistic, and I love how a program like Crazy Creative makes creativity accessible for everyone. Join in any Saturday from 11 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. at the Kawartha Art Gallery. You can find out more by following them on social media or visiting kawarthagallery.com. You'll love it.
When do you think you knew it?
Like for myself?
Well, yeah.
Or like, yeah.
How far back can you trace maybe having these feelings or now connecting with sensory issues or any other triggers that you might have?
I can trace sensory issues. Like I was known as the picky eater. Like things aren't touching, textures. Like, and it was just like she's a picky eater, or like she's sensitive, or like maybe in my family, like even like my sister, but she's the more sensitive one, and like, but she's the picky eater, and she, so it's always been there, but it was under the guise of being artistic. And I say it like that because sometimes when I say autistic, people are like, did you say artistic? I'm like, well,
yeah.
Is it the same? No, just kidding. But it's like, she's just a little different. Like, whatever, like quirks. Well, she's just bad at math because she's artistic. And like, so it was kind of always like, she's a little different.
Yeah.
But it was like the quirky, artsy different, which now I know is just autism and ADHD. So
how would people describe you as different? Like what, I don't want to say how are you different, but like besides like food and things when you were a kid.
I don't know if they would.
Sensitive, quiet, like you said.
Yeah. I don't know if they would. In some ways, I feel like I masked probably really well and still do. So I feel like people would maybe only think that through just like, she's really into art, or like, which now I'm like, special interests and different things like that, right? But like, I think they would, I don't know. I think it was just always like through that lens, and then everything else just kind of like almost got like pushed into place through that lens maybe. And then I don't know. I can't really I don't think people would be like, she's different other than literally that. And she's just like extremely picky. And I think everything else I kind of just like masks through some stuff, or like, if I were to think about constantly like fidgeting and tapping and stuff, like I'd have to like kind of suppress that. Like family members would be like, can you stop? Because it was affecting their sensory things. And but again, that was sort of like under the guise of like, she's just a drummer. So it's like, of course she's tapping because of that, not because of like, stimming or ADHD, like hyperactivity or anything like that. So it just it seemed like there was a reason for everything, but because of the lack of knowledge around autism and the spectrum that it is, it just everything kind of like was neatly fit into a different box. If that makes sense.
Yeah, and you were young and masking, and it's
be a good little girl.
Invisible thing that was pushed off. So
yeah.
Do you look back now, having that diagnosis, with a fondness of your childhood? Like, was your childhood good, easy? Were you happy? Or is it like bringing up feelings now where you look back and you're like, actually, I maybe wasn't as happy as I thought I was, and I was masking?
I think I do look back with like a happiness. I think what's weird, and I feel like you can experience like portions of this with becoming a parent, you're kind of like reparenting yourself through everything. And so like I'm almost experiencing it through my daughter, but with this curiosity of what would have been myself at this age in its like rawest form, because I feel like I'm in like me and my husband are trying to allow our daughter to be herself, unmasked at home, like, and we want her to be elsewhere, but it's just natural that they're going to pick up on certain things that you're supposed to do and follow the rules and blah, blah, blah. But so I think as I'm like parenting her, I'll see like really like distraught emotional regulation. She's also young too, but or just like really like a lot of physicality, like literally like climbing the walls, bouncing off the couch, like just like constant movement, constant everything. And I'm just like, it's really interesting to see like in that, like this is a good example of that, of like, what would I have been like at that age?
Yeah.
Without the parameters of like, my parents were great parents, but like, you know, I feel like especially of the time, just like sit still.
It's very different. Yeah.
Be a good girl.
Yeah.
Blah, blah, blah. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and so these sort of restrictions that were just literally based around like what, like kind of like, I'm not saying they were like, you know, the type of parents there's like be seen, not heard or something like that.
Oh,
like
no, I think
but it's like there's like that essence, right? Yeah. Especially if you're a girl too. It's like I think they do say like the percentages
sit there.
Yeah, just like, you know, and so I'm like, was I really suppressing a lot of need to like literally jump off the couch and the coffee table and stuff? So I think I look back and I just wonder, because I don't know how much I've kind of like suppressed it all in a way. So it's hard to say. Like I still think of my childhood with like fond memories from what I can remember. Like I feel like I talk to a lot of people, especially a lot of neurodiverse people that are like, I don't remember a lot of things. I do sort of attribute that to just like the amount of information you're taking in, like just all the time. And so it's like, I think your brain just can't keep up with like so many memories, because you're just like, now I remember the texture of that piece of fabric behind you, like, and I'll remember that forever, you know, versus like just, I don't know, maybe bigger details. But anyways, that was a little long answer, but yeah, generally good. But definitely, I think with most people who are like late diagnosed, there is this sort of grief of, if I had known, or if my parents even had kind of the tools to know and look out for these things, like what could have, you know, if I look back over my life, there's cycles of burnout continually, which now I know is a classic sort of sign and what a lot of neurodiverse people deal with. But yeah, so I think it's a real mix. It's like still processing too, because I just got the autism diagnosis this year. And
that's
then
less than 8 months ago.
Yeah, like literally, I think I was like, I literally went back in my phone. I was like, was that May? Like, but then my daughter was like, was it like literally just end of last year? I don't know. Time is, but
I remember like I met your husband Sean 2 years ago.
Yeah, and like that's.
And
like,
that's when
I got like the ADHD diagnosis.
Yeah,
right?
and he's always been like pretty open, and I forget how it came up in conversation, but he was the one that was asking me questions, and maybe because of my son, where he was like, "Hey, my wife is like going through diagnosis for ADHD," and I was talking about my wife's experience, and I think that was like when we first met.
Yeah.
Maybe it was more than a year ago, but anyways,
was it more? Yeah. See, time is very blurry to me, but like, like whether that was like last year, so that's like what, 2 years ago? I don't know. Anyways, but like there was sort of like a big gap between like ADHD, then my daughter's like full diagnosis, ADHD, and then my autism diagnosis, and so it's like still like I was processing all the ADHD, but then I was trying to categorize like, well, because there's so many things when we just talk about like neurodiversity that's like, and I think because people are still learning about autism, it's like a lot of things are sort of getting miscategorized as like ADHD things that I think are actually like autism things. And I have a couple of friends going through that. They're talking about like really intense like sensory sensitivities and different things. And I'm like, you know, I remember seeing like a pie chart that I think some person on Instagram put out or something, and it was kind of showing like all the different things for like how they experience like ADHD and how they experience autism and all this sort of things. And it really like, it's like, okay, maybe ADHD, you have like maybe this much like sensory sensitivities, but then maybe with like autism, it's like that much or something. And so I remember when I was trying to like fit this all into neat little boxes, I'm like, okay, but where does one start and one end? And I think that's just because of like needing labels. And I think at some point we might get beyond that and it'll just be like sort of, I don't know, like a spectrum of everything. But it is helpful to process and learn and have those labels for understanding and then for having other people to understand what your needs are as well.
Why do you think that's important?
The labels? I think, and I had this conversation actually with a psychologist when I was talking about explaining things to my daughter because she's 4.5 and we just went through the process of talking with the school and getting it on their, whatever radar and doing what they need to do so she can have the support she needs. But I'm like, I haven't talked to her about any of this yet, other than just like in very broad senses of like what bodies need, what brains need, and just very kind of like some people's brains need this and some people's bodies need this without any labels. But I do remember the psychologist sort of saying that the labels for her like will be very helpful. And I agree, like for myself and anyone else I've talked to so far, but that it will help her understand more about herself and understand like why I'm different or why like when
she has certain needs.
Yes. Yeah. And like big emotions or why in this social situation, I'm like shutting down or whatever, these little things that we're still learning about her. Cause she's only 4.5, but, having like a reason for that, I think will help take away the what's wrong with me, which I internalize. And everyone that I've talked to that's late diagnosed, it's without the label and the understanding of what it is, you internalize that as like, what's wrong with me? Or like, why can't I?
Well, you were probably told your whole life that there was something wrong with you.
Exactly, because
like, you're not eating the way you should. You're not sitting the way you should.
Exactly.
Like, whether they're intentional or not, or aggressive or not, you were still, since a kid, being told you were doing things wrong.
Exactly.
Like just sitting there.
Yeah, literally just sitting there.
You can't
and
even
like,
sit there.
Maybe
probably.
not even like directly. Because you're just like keeping track of the world around you and like sort of just like, okay, so they said that to that person. So that therefore that means this.
Yes.
Like, all that, so you're just like applying all these things all the time. And you're just like constantly like, what's wrong with me? Or sort of sometimes even like gaslighting yourself into like, this shouldn't be a big deal. But you're like, no, it is a big deal for me. And like, that's okay. And like the acceptance that this is something so minor, but I find it hilarious. Like I love gardening right now, but my biggest pet peeve is like dealing with the garden hose because it's like wet and dirty. And then I have to like touch it. Yeah. And I'm like, this is like really gross to me right now. Like, but it's like a means to the end to do this like kind of new special interest hobby thing. But like me realizing instead of just being like, no, that's not a big deal. No, like, if I couldn't like wash my hands directly after or something like that, I'm like, I'll just constantly tell myself like, this shouldn't be a big deal. Just deal like, that's in a very, very small scale. But then there's like bigger scales that then do affect people. And then they're constantly telling themselves like, what's wrong with you? Just like, that's not a big deal. Just go and whatever. But I think like the acceptance part of like learning about what is hard for you or what like whatever sensory issues you're dealing with, like okaying them and realizing like that is a big deal to me and that's okay because we have, when you're especially late diagnosed, have told yourself for years or a lifetime that it's not a big deal.
I'm always trying to get into my son's head when it comes to sensory issues or things that may lead to a meltdown. I've never asked an adult this, so I don't even know if you will be able to, but can you describe the feelings you have when you're having sensory overload? So like you're doing gardening, you're enjoying yourself, it's peaceful, it's giving you that dopamine, and then you're like, oh, now I got to touch this dirty wet hose. Can you even articulate it?
Yeah, and you know what? There's even other layers because, for example, like I was gardening, was it yesterday? And wait, was it yesterday or the day before? I don't know, but like I was home by myself, so I was like, I gotta do this even though it's like 30 something degrees out. Like, so there's like sweat dripping down my back. There's like just like my feet are getting muddy and then wet and then muddy and then like there's just all these things going on, and I don't know. It's like this bracing for impact is like how I could describe it. And then I think there's varying levels of bracing for impact. It's like I can feel sort of mentally, like probably in my nervous system, like the brace for impact of like dealing with the next thing that's going to be a problem.
Like physically, you feel like almost your body is tensing up and ready for impact.
I know for sure mentally,
Yeah.
but I do know that like the mental connection to the physical, like I remember reading this book about parenting, or that like our daughter's like play therapist recommended, and I thought it was really cool because it illustrated like the impact of like the mental to the physical, and the impact on the nervous system with that. And it was like, okay, so when we have kids that can be very like in a negative word, stubborn or something like that, we classify them that in our heads and we're like, oh, like I just wish whatever. But if they were an adult, that trait would be a positive thing. Like you are very determined, right?
Yes.
Instead of stubborn, right?
Yeah.
And so it's like, it's interesting that the traits that a child has when they're an adult, those are the ones that you want to foster, and you hope they have those traits, really. Like if someone's just describing, oh, that person is so determined and they like just don't stop at what they're doing and blah, right? And you're like, but in like a little child, you're like, oh my gosh, like this is, you know, too much or whatever. But she was saying that if you were to write out a list of those like hard traits and then put a positive trait to each one of them, and then internally do the work of, instead of saying, oh, you're so stubborn, be like, you're determined. The switch mentally actually like doesn't fire up your nervous system into fight or flight. And so it's like just literally the thought in the moment of like a big parenting situation where you have to whatever, like, oh, they're so fill in the blank. If you, instead of going right to that negative trait and you go to the positive trait, it'll keep your nervous system for going into fight or flight. And like the kids can feel that. They feel the nervous system. And then obviously you're parenting differently. If you're parenting from like a fight or flight, like, oh, I just need you, you know, into just like, you're so determined and like you're staying calm. And I thought that was really interesting that like the connection on just like one mental thought could change kind of like the vibe, all that sort of stuff. So long answer to sort of answer the question of maybe like an internal mental bracing for impact versus like a body sensation. It's probably quite connected, and I haven't even been aware or realized like that sort of feeling in the moment. But like that's like sorry, not like a big deal one, but like I know that if I'm like with my daughter and something's bugging me, I've reached, like, especially at the end of the day, for example, we're getting close to bedtime, or it is bedtime, and
4 weeks into summer.
Yeah, which, whew.
Summer should be over by now.
Yeah, people are like waiting to hear back from me on things, and I'm just like, I'm just surviving, guys. Like literally every day, like I don't even know how many emails I haven't answered and all these things, but if I haven't done something, let's just to say, to meet my sensory needs at that point, so I'm still in uncomfortable pants, or maybe I still have makeup on, or my hair is in a way that's bugging me, something, and like I literally can't focus on anything else. Like the only thing that's like driving in my brain is like, you need to change right now, or you can't focus. I will.
Right away.
Right away.
Okay.
Only, and luckily, because my husband is there with me, and I can just be like, I'll be right back. Because I'll notice myself getting to a point where it's like, I'm going to freak out. Like my patience is like so low, which is not helpful at bedtime. You know, one more drink, one more snack, whatever. But it's like, I can just like feel it like bubbling up like a volcano. And I'm like, I'm going to snap over nothing. all because I can feel my waistband. And it's like, I realize I'm like, oh, yeah, I don't think everybody feels like this. It's like, if I can feel the makeup on my face, like one more minute, like I'm like, I just need to wash it off. But if I'm like alone for bedtime, sometimes that means like her just coming with me and doing that, or me pushing through. But I have noticed if I push through, I'm usually less patient, and I'm usually like, and they will feel it. And so I'm trying to sometimes, if I can, just deal with my sensory issues so that I can be like a better parent for her in those moments that take a lot of patience.
Have you been able to communicate that with her? Or?
Yeah, I do tell her what I'm doing. I don't know, like, I don't know how much she takes it in, but like, I do say, I'm like, I just need to change my pants because these are so uncomfortable right now, or something like that. So she'll probably grow up being like, that's perfectly
Mom
normal.
was uncomfortable all the time.
Just like, oh, yes, I am. I'm always at
Tell your mom. She was uncomfortable.
She was uncomfortable. Just always uncomfortable. Just 1 second, I'll be right back.
But I think, like, how amazing and fortunate will she be as she grows and matures and becomes an adult to have a mom that is going through it basically at the same time and able to express that and able to communicate that. And I think she's really fortunate.
Yeah, it's almost emotional, like could get me emotional when I think about like her.
This would be the longest we've gone without getting emotional on the podcast.
Oh, really? Yeah. Oh, wow.
3 minutes
so
and 10 minutes. So this is the longest. So go ahead.
Got them locked down.
Yes. You're asking very well. Yes.
Yeah, seriously. No, maybe it was a very good like ADHD / therapy coaching session yesterday morning. So maybe they got out yesterday. So I have like enough to push through today. But just to think about so I'm pretty sure I'm like 30 years older than her. Yeah, we're literally like 30 years apart. So it's like for her to find out at basically like 4, and then for me to find out at 34. And then like my dad is almost like 30 years older than me almost. And like for him to find out at that same time, like literally he was diagnosed within weeks of me of ADHD.
Okay.
Yeah. And like he suspected autism at the time, but I had just learned about ADHD. And so like everything that he was kind of experiencing, we could kind of fit into a box of ADHD, but then there was just some like, let's call them loose ends that did it. But, because of like I mentioned earlier about like kind of the broad spectrum of neurodiversity, you can kind of sometimes fit things over here when maybe they're more over here. But he suspected that, but we just, because I was going down that pathway, then he did too, which I really wish we just had both done dual like diagnosis at that point, because like the amount of times he said he would cry over like an itchy tag or an uncomfortable sweater, like it's
Did you know this about him before in the last couple months?
Like prior to me getting an ADHD diagnosis?
Yeah, like did you know
he was like
a year or two ago or 2 years ago or growing up that he was having these sensory issues?
He's always like shared certain things like that. But like again, there wasn't like a space to put that. It's just like, oh, you're just a sensitive child, or you're just whatever, right? Like whatever my Nana, like his mom, would have like, oh, just blah, 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 you know, and just like kind of got over it. And so it's like I kind of knew some of these things, but I didn't have anywhere to put that information. It was just like, oh, yeah, okay. Like,
just
so,
dad.
Yeah, it's just dad. Like now with the knowledge that I have, I'm like, oh my gosh, like how are we just realizing this now? Because it just feels like sometimes it's very obvious once you understand like sort of ADHD and autism. You're like, you can see it in other people sometimes. And like, you're like, that's probably this, like that's probably that. Not to just like diagnose people, but when you've maybe talked enough with them and they've explained some things, you're like, And we're friends, so like we flock together. So there's a good chance that this is true for you.
Yeah.
It's
like that white car effect where
yes,
you've never seen a white car on the road
and
in your
now
life. Then you buy a white car, you're like, yeah, everybody's got a white car.
Yes, like my friends are flocking for diagnoses at this point.
And it's fascinating. Like we're hyper aware of it. And I thought that we were hyper aware of it when heading into diagnosing our son, because my nephew, Meg's sister's son, was diagnosed a long time ago.
Yeah.
So I was like, I think we're being sensitive. Like we're hypersensitive or too aware of it.
Yeah.
And I still wonder where that awareness comes from, or like why do we care? Why do we think about it? Maybe it is like, hey, we've got some tools now since we found this out, and you could be happier. Not that you're unhappy.
Yeah.
But like,
something could be easier.
I've got a secret for you.
Just so you know.
Yeah.
Your child melting down, like if, it does make things easier though, 100%. Knowing, right? Yeah. Because then you have the knowledge to like, it kind of gives you some like categories to look out for. Everyone experiences things differently, but you can start thinking, okay, like, well, was my routine off? Or like, what were the sensory issues involved? Or like, you can just kind of start figuring it out. And it gives, I think it helps, like, especially as a parent, like I think we always want to like help and figure things out. And sometimes it's just going to be bad just because of whatever sensory issue. And maybe we can't fix it, or maybe we can. But I think if you have those tools, it like helps you maybe relax more, being like, I understand why this meltdown is happening, versus like, I don't know, they're just freaking out. And like, I don't know. I think it's hard to say though, because I get very overstimulated by my own child. So like I maybe I'm always at like the tip of the iceberg of like, oh my gosh, like, but then when that big meltdown comes, I'm like, okay, like, you're like trying to figure out like, how do I make this better? How do I make this better? Well, like okaying the feelings and not trying to just be like, shh, stop, and sitting through it and trying to co-regulate and all these things that like weren't done with us. But knowing, I think it's just like, once you know, you want other people to know, because you do know that it helps. Like it just knowing helps. I don't know. Yeah.
So when did you get your daughter diagnosed?
I think literally last year. Like literally.
She would have been 2.5?
No.
No, that doesn't make sense. Sorry.
No, 4. Like she was literally, it would have been the beginning of this year. Literally the beginning of this year. Because I remember them saying like, we can look for ADHD at age 4. We can't do like all the tests because she's 4, but like we'll have a pretty good idea. And then I think at the bottom of the like sort of diagnosis assessment thing, it says like, come back for additional testing once she's old enough to like be able to do some of the more like things that she doesn't have skills for, like writing stuff and like I don't know, like I think around age 6 they can start doing more like learning disability stuff, and some of that like is usually like something that pairs with ADHD or autism or whatever. So so it would have been probably January or February. We would have just been kind of finding things out and getting the final diagnosis sometime early this year.
What signs did you see that you were like, we have to get her tested?
It was just like the ADHD signs, and I had no clue. I had no clue to look for anything else. And it wasn't until the psychologist said, some of the stuff you're describing is ASD, red flags, is kind of how she worded it. And I was like, oh, so we were explaining like the rigidity, like about like it has to be this way and like my way, and like the intensity in which everything that she was particular about had to be this way, and just so. Now I understand like that, like some of those things were to probably sort of feed her sensory sensitivities, and then some of them are just, I don't know, she just like wants it done that way, like, and things we would like repeating the same scenes, like acting, like playing
Right.
and repeating like the same scenes over and over, but like literally like 3 lines back and forth. And we just had to do that like 20 times in a row. Or, yeah, just like even at bedtime, like the way all her things had to be set just so. These have to go this way and they have to be like this and you have to put them here and then this has to go like this and then it was so, and it's been like that since she was very little, like I would say old enough to sort of be able to even communicate that like without words. She was late to talk, which is another sort of thing to look out for, I guess, but she always knew what she wanted, even when she couldn't verbally communicate it. She made sure that it was still how she wanted it. Like, I want my baby shark, mommy shark, and daddy shark lined up just like this at the edge of my bed, and they have to be looking at me, and they have to, like, it was just, yeah. There was a lot of sides. I just didn't know it, like, at that point.
It's amazing that you guys were aware enough to pick up on it.
Yeah.
That she had this challenge and not just, oh, she's just being a kid.
Yeah, everything honestly just felt really intense.
Yeah.
And it just felt more intense than when I looked around and saw like, and so she was born in 2020. So it's not like I was going around to that many mom groups and stuff. But like when I would get together with like a mom on a play date or something, this was when she was older, at least like 1.5, where it was like, we could go outside for a play date or whatever.
What month was she born?
November. So
you're,
I was literally pregnant.
Thick of it.
I found out I was pregnant at the end of February, and then literally like a few weeks later, it was
middle
like,
of February. They shut everything down for COVID. So.
middle March. So it was like a couple weeks, literally a couple weeks of like normalcy, and then it was like, yeah, just my entire pregnancy was like through that really scary, intense time, and then when she was born, it was also scary and intense, but just a different sort of level. It was so that was a lot. So sometimes it's hard to know what like postpartum experience was true to me and her versus the world and all that sort of thing. But anyways, what were you saying?
I can't remember.
Okay, I can't remember either.
What was that birth like then?
Oh,
but like,
yeah.
was John allowed there?
Yeah, so
Or can I say his name?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, sure. Like, and here's
you hadn't said your daughter's name. And they're like, okay, maybe we're not saying daughter's
Oh,
name.
I didn't think about it.
Anyways.
I think, I don't know. I guess sometimes
Someone else specifically said they didn't want to say their kid's name.
Okay.
Like, no problem.
Oh, yeah.
I should ask, but anyway.
Yeah. No, I don't know. I didn't
Sean's
think
name
about
out.
it. Yeah. Sean's name. Yeah, it was really stressful, and it actually impacted how we chose to go about like where to birth her and all the plans around that, because of the fear of like, is he going to be allowed in the hospital? Is he going to be like, could he be tested and have a fever? And then I'm doing this alone and I have to be in a mask and like all these things. And so I already leaned towards like the more natural side of things. And so I had already like hired a doula and like was with midwives who supported hospital and home birth. But once all this was going down, I was like, well, if I have her at home, I'm in control, which now I know me being in control of things is really leans towards what we know now. But it did give me something to grasp onto, which felt a little more sure, even though, you know, things can still happen. And it was all within very safe parameters of like, I was this amount of distance from a hospital and could get to the hospital that the midwives had, what do you call it? Like where they were able to come in and stay with me for the birth and stuff, where they had like access and privilege is what the word is, privileges to that hospital. But yeah, so we had her at home at my old house in the bathtub. So
that's fascinating that you would like, with the way you like things a certain way, routine, that you're like, nah, I'm just gonna go to the hospital, which is the normal way to do it. Yeah. You're like, let's just have it in a bathtub with sorcerers.
Yeah. Just like at home. And it's like my whole life is kind of like that. It all makes sense now. Let's put it that way.
Do you think you were rebellious then?
No, I was like, follow the rules, be a good girl, to the point of like probably my detriment. But is like just very high masking. Like, and I noticed this with my daughter now, so she started JK and come home and talk about the rules. We're not allowed to do this. We're allowed to do this. And like all that's just like very signs of like her just like really highly masking to like,
Yeah.
do what she's supposed to do, and like manage it, which is hard and sometimes makes me feel sad. But I also know that will give her a sense of like calm and peace with understanding expectations. And like if everything's staying the same in routine and like there's some probably like peace and stuff that brings. So.
I think that's one of the best parts of our son having autism is he loves rules. And he's not going to get himself in trouble. He's like, well, we can't do this because of this. I'm like, nailed it. Perfect. You're safe. You're not going to get other kids in trouble. You're not going to like, you're going to be cool.
Yeah.
And I love that.
Yeah.
I never really have to worry about it.
Did you ever get like him diagnosed for ADHD or no? Is it just autism?
Good question. I
do think it's like 70%, they say. If you have autism, it's 70% chance. Don't quote me on that, but that statistic stays in my mind for some reason. But it's not the reverse. It's like if you're autistic, it's a 70% chance you have ADHD, but not the opposite of that or something.
So I think that originally when we first saw the pediatrician, I'm trying to be brutally honest, but not be super cynical, but like they threw medicine at him and it didn't work.
Yeah.
Right away. They're like, well, why are we giving him Ritalin? I think it was, or whatever. And we're like, well, like he has ADHD and we're going to test this out. And if it works, like he'll like adjust. And if it doesn't work, he'll be up all night. And he was up all night for 3 months in March of, I don't know the exact year, but it was like rough.
That sounds
rough.
Bad. Yeah.
So like we pulled him off that
right
away.
Yeah.
And then I don't know exactly how these things went into place, but I know that we almost spontaneously found someone that was moving from Ottawa to Lindsay. Professionally had reached out to me and I was like, oh, this is exactly what we need right now.
Yeah.
So she came into town, diagnosed him with autism and I don't know what kind of anxiety, generalized anxiety they call it or something, which makes a ton of sense.
Yeah.
But I think they did rule out ADHD.
Okay. Yeah, that's interesting.
But then we're super hyper aware of it. Meg was diagnosed.
Yeah.
I think that's changed her life. I think it's made everything better in the people's lives around her also.
Yeah.
We're hyper aware of it and we see that in our other son. We'll start looking at him getting diagnosed in the fall, but like we've been treating him like he has ADHD for at least the last year.
Yeah.
Things are a lot easier.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting.
Just help him and give him the tools.
Yeah. So. Yeah, the tools. It does help. Yeah. And it's funny how like intuitively sometimes we start doing that for our kids. Like I feel like I look at like her playroom before I knew anything of this and I'm like, oh, a climber, a ball pit, like all these things that are very physical and like help with like her, like, like crashing and whatever, like it's all very regulating. And if I look at like occupational therapy type stuff, I'm like, it's very adjacent to that, but I just was kind of trying to follow what she was showing me that she needed. Like, you love, and trampolines, like trampolines everywhere. Like, you've been wanting to just jump since you were in like a jolly jumper. And then after that, okay, seems to help her, And so it's funny then going through like the diagnosis process, they're like, oh, it could be helpful if you had a trampoline and this and that. And I'm like, I already got 3, like, so it's, if there's one thing that I can give myself credit for being a parent because I'm very hard on myself, which is not, it's also very normal to be very hard on yourself. But is that like I did really follow what she needed and like sort of intuitively, because like we are the same ADHD, like it's like I kind of knew what she needed. And so I was able to help her. But with that is a lot of struggles too, because like she's overstimulated, I'm overstimulated. And so that makes it really hard to parent.
I think you do need to give yourself a lot more credit because in all sincerity, like not to talk about our generation
Yeah.
or generalize about our parents and grandparents and stuff, a lot of parents, or I'm going to say a bad parent, would have just been ignoring it,
Yeah.
pushing it to the side,
Yeah.
stop being that way, or in a way seeing themselves
Mm-hmm.
and been like extra hard on her,
True.
pushed
True.
her into like
You're like-
really being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Like,
Because
hey, I see these bad traits that I have that I want to erase in her.
yeah. Now I can
But now
try and
you are
fix it.
embracing them
True. Yeah.
or helping her.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
not erasing them, but you
Mhm.
are literally trying to make her happier
Yeah.
and more comfortable. And I don't believe that that is the case for some parents.
True. Yeah.
I truly think, and I'm going to get in so much trouble for like older generation of
Yeah.
parents and stuff,
Yeah.
where they said that they care and
Yeah.
they love their kids and their grandkids more
Yeah.
than anything, but do those actions and their behaviors actually show that?
True.
I don't think. I think that they want them in little neat piles on the way that they were told.
That's true because of how they were raised
Yeah.
and the parents and whatever the situation at the time and how they handled their trauma or whatever and all just got. And honestly, they're probably neurodiverse too because
Yeah.
it's in the families. So like
Passing it
they,
down,
yeah,
yes.
exactly. So they were I like to say it like they did the best with what they had at the time.
You have to remind yourself that.
Yeah, like it's like we have so much more knowledge now, which has like benefits and not benefits. Sometimes it's really hard to have so much information.
It's way too much information about everything.
Everything. Like
Yeah.
as a new mom, you're like, I'm going to mess them up if I give them a soother, if I this, if I that. And it's like so intense and it's all coming at you. But then with that in the same hand, it's like now I have access to all this information that I didn't know about. And it's really helping me give me the tools, even back when I didn't know anything about this, to like, oh, maybe I should try that like deep pressure thing on her because she seems to be really squirmy at bedtime. And so you're like sort of like doing some things just because you saw a video online. So it's like it has its benefits, but yeah, it is a struggle too. You know, you got to remind yourself they just did the best. Well, most people did the best with what they had at the time.
The good parents.
Yeah.
They tried their best.
Yes, they tried their best.
Yes.
We're all learning.
Yes.
Yeah, you know, I'm going to mess it up too. And I already have, I'm sure, in lots of ways. But hopefully just being open to be able to repair that and learn and keep growing and do what I can for her.
Yeah. Were either the diagnoses, yours or your daughter's, hard?
Like to process?
Yeah. Or how did they make you feel?
I don't think I felt like upset about it or like or anything. I think it was more, I would say first validating for
Mhm.
both. It was very validating because it explained so much because I already knew something is different here.
Mhm.
And like sitting with that all the time and not knowing what it was and feeling almost like people just couldn't understand like what I was going through as a parent.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, but you don't like, I couldn't, you know, it's like parenting is hard, you know, but like parenting neurodiverse children is really hard.
Yeah.
And being neurodiverse in that is really hard too. And I saw something too where it explained some sort of parallel, not that it's like a competition, but I'm just like, this feels harder than it should.
Mhm.
If it was this hard for everyone, like I'm pretty sure we would have all been extinct a long time ago. Like,
I've had the same thoughts, and I forget who I said it to.
Yeah.
But it's not a competition, but I'm honestly,
this feels
my
hard.
life is harder than some other people's.
It's just
It is.
It's just hard.
Leave
It's
me
just,
alone.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, it's hard, and like, don't argue with me because it is.
Exactly. And it's just like everyone's experiences are their own and whatever. But it's just like, this is hard. And like, you can kind of like gather that information when you're like chatting with other moms or dads and you're like,
Yeah.
that's not
Because
like that.
the
you
other
know?
parents are like, well, I've got kids, and all kids are stubborn, and they're all a certain way.
like,
And
but
you're like, yeah, but
And then you have
literally
these scenarios run through your head. You're like, but does this happen in that case? And you're like, I know it doesn't because I've seen your kids.
different.
Or like what my thing, me and Sean would always like when people would like bring their babies or even toddlers to like some sort of situation where they just had them on their lap and the kid would just sit there, just like do nothing
Is
for
that kid
hours.
okay? Yeah.
Yeah, you're like,
That's supposed
like
to be.
I would like 5 minutes and we were squirming and screaming and like and I was like, and that was a very overstimulating for me because like the thing was always like, let's go do a mommy meetup date thing. And I was so overstimulated at the end. I'm like, can we do that without our kids though? I'm like, can we leave home and can we just get together to talk? Because like I'm exhausted at the end of those because I'm like, so much information. She's freaking out. I'm trying to have a conversation. And now I realize I was just like so overstimulated the whole time.
So she'd be like in your ear, like
just like
wanting
squirming.
to play.
Yeah.
Squirming?
And still now,
Okay.
mommy,
Yeah.
play with me. Mommy. I mean, I get she also is an only child.
Mm.
So she doesn't have somebody else to play with. Like I am the one that plays with her most of the time. So I understand that if I'm having an adult conversation and she's 4.5, like we have usually unfair expectations of like attention span and stuff usually on kids. But
For sure.
Still, it's just ever since she was little, there's just always felt like more demands, more needs, more constant stimulation and entertainment and attention and need, whatever it was, it just always felt like a lot. And then I'd look at other people's kids and I'm like, there's no world that she would ever do that. Like, you know, I don't know. It just,
Beckett was always, when he was younger, we'd go to an event or a situation like that and he'd be on you. Not jumping up and down, but not sitting still either. Kind of like clearly uncomfortable. Like there's too much going on, wouldn't really engage with the other kids, wouldn't go play. I've always thought he's like not had a great imagination. Like when he was a little kid, like he never was the kid that like would get toys and like really play with them for hours and hours and hours. Or engage like a little car or something like that. So like everyone's experience is just so different. I used to joke, we'd get invited to like another kid's birthday party and you'd always go at that time with them, right? So it'd be all the kids would be off playing and Beck and me would be at the snack table just crushing snacks and we have a great time. Or I'd talk to him like, are you, like he didn't look like he was having a good time. And I'm like, are you having fun? He's like, oh yeah. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah,
cool.
you just like looks different.
Now in hindsight, you look back, like he was super uncomfortable. It was like super anxious, way sensory overload. It was too loud, too many people. Especially when you're a kid or at that age, everyone wants to touch you and poke you. Like that's not normal behavior. Imagine we just met people. I know we shake hands or hug. Which I also think hugging is a weird thing too in general for adults. But anyways, just the idea of like you meet people or like you see kids and like random people in the stores will just touch their cheek. That's not normal.
Weird. Yeah.
Like of course kids don't like that.
Yeah. It was interesting actually. The other day, Arin was okay, sometimes like now I realize like I'm doing like I've always done a lot of prep with her, talking about things in advance. But then sometimes I do like now it's like almost like scenario playing out, which now I understand that's like literally part of it all. But I'll be like, okay, so like you want to wear this princess dress to the grocery store, or you want to wear this like ghost spider costume to the grocery store. And I was like, yeah, sure. Like if you want to wear that, like I'm like, there's so many other things I'm going to worry about than putting.
How's that going to hurt anybody?
Right? I'm just like, just so you know, like people might really like that you're in this really cute princess outfit. So people might talk to you. People might want to say, oh, you know, and I'll just say little things like, do you feel comfortable with that? Like, do you, like, not that I'm like trying to be like, you're going to get extra attention, but you're a cute little girl and you're going to, if you show up wearing a princess dress and crown, like people are going to smile at you and maybe talk with you, especially like old ladies at the grocery store. Like they just can't not talk to kids. And I'm always like voice for, I'm always like the voice for her basically. I'm just like, cause she's not gonna, she will kind of do the same, like overwhelmed and just not want to like interact and just kind of pull back and like hide away and just like literally like say nothing. And that people for some reason expect your child to talk to a complete stranger.
Why are you not articulating yourself and being
like respond, small talk with me, 4-year-old? Like, like I can barely do it. Sometimes I leave the grocery store. I'm like, what did I just say to that person? Like in that like small talk conversation, I was like, that didn't make sense.
Yeah.
Anyways, but yesterday was like the first time that when we went to like Canadian Tire, she wore her ghost spider costume, even though I'm like, it's gonna be very hot outside and you were in long sleeves and but she wanted to. And I was just like, okay, if like just did the whole like walk her through, people might like say something to you. Like, she's like, that's okay, Mom. You'll just say, she takes time to warm up. And I was
That's amazing. Oh my God.
And I was like, oh, that's really cute. Cause like I have been very intentional about not like putting like sort of like negative labels like shy and this and sort of that. Cause I know sometimes that can be like hard on people. It's like, well, she's like not really shy. She just takes time to warm up to you and you're a stranger. And she's like, even with people she knows, it sometimes takes time to acclimatize to the situation. And so I'm just like, it's that little moment where you're like, oh, she like, she's listening. She hear, it's
absolutely.
It's not negatively internalized. It's just like, it's okay, Mom, you'll just say this. I'm like, okay. And then I do go further. I'm like, and if you want, you could say this or you could say that. But yeah, it was cute.
How are you finding her going to school?
Yeah, it went surprisingly well. So she'll be going into SK, senior kindergarten this year. And she's not going to have the same teacher, which like I'm very anxious about because that would have really helped. The teachers left the school, unfortunately, but I think she'll have the same, hopefully, EA. You don't really find out any of this until the last minute. But because we did get her like recognized with like the school board and stuff as autistic, like with like big transitions and stuff, like they're gonna have her early to see the classroom and meet the teacher and that sort of thing, which is good because I'm like, how do I prep her on these scenarios that I have no idea about because they don't choose them and like they don't nail everything down until the last minute. So I think what helped last year is she was at a daycare where she was going all the way through summer. So summer, there wasn't like a free for all summer. So it kind of just felt like we're just doing more daycare, but it's a school now. Same time. It's a change, but it's like the schedule, the routine, the morning, like drop up, pick up, all that stuff's the same, but and we did a lot of prep, we're like very close to the school. And so we would go and visit the playground. I'd like point up at the classroom when I'm at like the kindergarten orientation thing. I'm like snapping pictures so that we can like show later, do lots of talking about it, lots of books on starting kindergarten and all the things. So I will do as much as possible in terms of like that prepping area, which helps with those big transitions. So same with this one. But it was actually cool. The school sent like the CERT teacher, what's it called? Special education resource teacher, sent home like a book that had like, something you're supposed to read to them like over the summer, kind of like, this is my school. These are the pictures of the teachers, like the kindergarten team, here's what the classrooms look like. And they kind of had it for like each age, which is really great because it's like sort of prepping them. So that sort of took like, we can just kind of keep, actually, I got to find where I put that. I'm supposed to be doing that. Like, where did I put that? Oh, ADHD.
It's in a pile somewhere.
Yeah, it's been out of sight, out of mind. It's a struggle. But I think I am nervous about, we're a little out of routine right now. Some of it just happens naturally. You're like, now I'm going to the cottage, now I'm this and stuff. So I'm really hoping that like those like maybe last 2 weeks of summer we can, or maybe even all of August, I don't know, feels like it'll be a little more normalized, try and get back into that slowly so that then it's like less rough when we start back up again. Because I'm doing all the other things, but the routine piece I feel like is key. So I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how it goes.
What kind of trouble does she have at school, if any? Is it hard to like say goodbye, a separation? That was Beck's thing.
Yeah.
Always, from day one. And again, in hindsight, like, oh, okay, this makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Every single
That's what it was
day.
at daycare for her every day, like for months. It was really hard. I was surprised that at like that first bit at school, it wasn't that full, intense separation. She wasn't thrilled. Like, some kids are like, I'm so excited. She just was like cautiously optimistic, neutral, which is good. I'm like, I will take neutral over kicking and screaming because it just pulls at your heart. But on honestly, once the newness wore off, it was sort of like the grind of it, especially those early sort of JK months of when they're so small and it's a lot of days and they're tired. So like when we're getting into like November, it was like, oh, I don't want to go again and stuff. And then we're transitioning into colder months.
Yeah.
And like we're having to switch outdoor gear that we're wearing, and you've grown out of the stuff from last year. And so honestly, for her, transitions with like clothing and like getting out the door in the morning, being so close to the school, sometimes we were 50 minutes late because of a meltdown over outerwear. That
You
it's like,
literally don't live 10 seconds away from
yeah,
the school.
it's like,
Yeah.
and I'm just like, you know, I know what's going on because I had suspicions now of all these things, but I'm just like, and you know, we're talking as openly as we could with the teachers about like, you know, we have some sensory issues and stuff, but like I was just equating that to ADHD at the time. We hadn't met with the psychologist about when she was the first person to say, oh, there's some ASD things here. So yeah, it was rough, like going into fall. Okay, now we're putting on splash pants, and now we have rubber boots. And do the splash pants go over the rubber boots, inside the rubber boots, like, and then the socks inside? And so it was, and now we're getting like colder, and so it's like, well, now we should wear lined splash pant or like I don't know. And then getting too hot in the class. Oh my gosh, and zippers and hoods, and it was probably the issues with clothing and then the transitions of seasons, honestly, through the school year, which caused the most stress. Because then even after like winter, it would be one thing would be wrong and whole snowsuit and everything is coming off and we're starting all over after we get through the crying. And I was just like, and you're just trying so hard to just stay calm when you're just like
trying to get
you're just like, see, yeah, it's like
trying to do what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah, exactly. And so I just sometimes it was just like, okay, we're just gonna be really late, and I would rather you be like regulated and, you know, doing as best as you can than just like forcing this stuff on and like getting you out the door. It's like, it's school at the end of the day. These are real issues, and you're literally 4. At that point, she was like 3. So like, you know, anyways. And then coming out of winter was hard too, because now she's wanting to wear all her winter stuff and switching to the short sleeves. I want long sleeves. And sometimes she'd be going there and be so like hot because like it's a warmer day, you know, and the weather's always changing. So that was probably the hardest thing. She did pretty good with the transition, I think, because of the consistency of routine. But all that other stuff was a struggle.
Beckett never wears anything long sleeve. He doesn't have hoodies, pullovers, nothing like that. He hasn't been sent to school with snow pants on his body at least in a year.
Will he put them on there because the other kids or no?
I think so. But the thing is, he won't play in the snow. Yeah, he will.
Yeah.
Sorry, he will. He actually does love being outside.
Yeah.
But he can get through the day not getting in the snow covered in them. But like he won't put them on in the morning.
Oh yeah.
If they're doing something outside, an activity, and they have to put them on, he will. Yeah. Because he doesn't want to be wet.
Yes.
Or anything either.
That was the teacher's comment, just to be wet. So we just we're in new socks, new pants, new this.
Oh, we've been sending him to school for years with like
extra stuff, like lots of extra stuff.
And the more we started listening to him, especially in the last couple of years or months, it's always getting better. The more we listen to them, the easier it is. And like just listen.
Just listen. They're saying that they don't like the socks. Like just don't.
He's like freaking out that he doesn't want snow pants on. Just walk into the school, because he goes into the school. He doesn't like go
out and like
He hates it. It's nonsense.
Yeah.
It's stressed out. So he goes into the school,
chaos.
sits there with Meg for a while, and then transitions over into the actual classroom. So I'm like, we don't even need to put this.
Right. You're like, why are we fighting for this thing? Yes, I know. Yep. Sometimes you just got to listen.
Yes. It's early, but what kind of resources do you think the community needs more for autism?
Community. Kind of as I mentioned before, we're just sort of touching on accessing resources because everything's sitting in my email waiting for me to do it. But
because they don't make it easy either.
It's not easy. And there's so much executive functioning with it all. And it's like so hard. So I'm like, what resources do they need? I wonder if we were to think about it in the sense of like awareness for those who don't know anything about autism, and like the resources that like the community like could use is like more information around it, so that there's like somehow we're like the general public, so people who know nothing about this, and maybe they'll realize they're autistic or their kid is, but could have like come into contact more with information around this that was easily digestible and not pigeonholing sort of like what their view of a very narrow view of what autism is, so that if things are feeling hard, and maybe some of that hard things in their life could actually be that they're autistic or neurodiverse and they don't know it or whatever, like maybe they'll find their way there quicker. Maybe just if they're neurotypical, and maybe it just helps bridge the gap of understanding, because there's so much sort of like educating you have to do to people who don't know anything about it. And kind of as I've been learning, it's like, you know, you're teaching your kids constantly how to interact with other kids and all this stuff. So it's like, what could we have everyone else doing to sort of help bridge that gap a little better? So I'm like, I know that I'm sure there's lots of resources that like autistic kids could and adults could use that are maybe not out there, but because I haven't fully accessed them all, I wonder if like more information for like sort of general public somehow getting out there and like breaking down stereotypes so that it's quicker to be accepted. And that when, like, I know some people who, when sort of the word autism comes into it, and the fear or whatever that comes up with that, and then the hesitancy to accept diagnosis or potential of that, if we could take that away so that it was just like, oh, okay, this just helps me understand my kid more, and it doesn't mean anything negative, and it doesn't mean this, or it's just more understanding. And so it'd be cool if we could get to the point where, and I know that's a big thing to ask, but like, you know, more information is power in some ways. And so I think that could be helpful for other people.
I think it's an amazing answer.
Yeah.
I wish you could feel my brain of like, yes, because I've actually never thought about that. And anytime the last couple of years that I've been thinking about autism and how can I help my son and other people and all this, it's always, how do we help the people with autism,
exactly,
or their parents, or their caregivers? I'm getting like goosebumps because I like,
you're
this
like,
was a great answer and a good idea.
Yeah.
But like, we don't spend enough or any time, like
kind of
like maybe 1% of our time telling the general public, this is autism, and be more aware of it.
Here's what it is. Here's what it can look like. It can look like the girl who's not lining up the toys, or not like there's so many things it could look like.
And we ask so much of neurodiverse people to like fit into certain paths and lanes, and maybe we should be expecting like the neurotypical people, like, no, you guys should be sitting and going into certain lanes, or be more understanding of the lanes that these other people have to go through, and let them be. Maybe don't touch kids in the grocery store when you're walking by them, or
maybe don't force a hug on, even at family get-togethers, right? Don't. Sorry, great Nana, we don't do hugs, like, you know, and like, so that it's not. I understand when they're that old, the idea is hard, but just a little bit more general knowledge, for like the general public could probably go a long way for all of us.
It's a great idea.
Parents and
I've never thought about that, and I've been sort of in this world for a few years. And my mind has been, how do we help? How do I help?
I think that would help, right? Because think about how many people it would maybe get a diagnosis and make their life easier in some ways, or help them love someone else and understand and have less sort of stereotypes in their minds.
Yeah. And I think we're there. I think the
Yeah.
world is there
Yeah.
or ready for it.
Yeah.
Because us growing up, it would have been very different for those kids. And
This
the
is
kids
good.
now, like you see it, and I don't know if you see it with your daughter, but I went to track and field a
Mhm.
couple months ago, and you hear like he's got friends and
Mhm.
he's happy and he's social and everything. Then you want to see it,
Yeah.
and like how are the other kids treating him?
Yeah.
And you go to like something like track and field, and I was very aware of it at that point,
Mhm.
and other things, but that one in
Mhm.
particular, like he's just any other kid.
Yeah.
They don't see it in that
No,
way.
they
and
just
they don't
accept.
see the other kid that's in a wheelchair. Like
Yes.
they're all so much
They're
more
like, oh,
accepting
that's
than
just
we
my
were.
friend who's, blah, 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 and like fill in the blank. And it's not a big
It's a
deal.
completely different world in a good way
In a good way.
with these kids.
Exactly.
So that's awesome.
Yeah.
What was my last question that I was always going to ask you? If you could, and I think you kind of already have touched on this
Okay.
a little bit, but
Yeah.
If there was one thing that you could tell everybody about autism, what would it be?
Yeah. It is what I touched on because the thing that came to mind was like, wait, can you say the question again? Because then it'll help me formulate my answer. Verbal processing.
I'm so used to like my wife and ADHD, where like I would like jump in and be like, here's what she's gonna answer.
Yeah.
And
You're
I
like,
don't want
I'm
to
like-
do that for you. I want to give you your voice.
like I can say it for
Like
you.
I know your answer, but like I'll like slip, So Natalie, if there was one thing you could tell everybody about autism and you wanted everybody to know about autism, what would it be?
Yeah, I think it's just about like breaking the stereotype and that it can look so different than what you think it is, depending on, when you grew up and stuff. And I don't think a lot of people would, and I haven't even really told that many people about my diagnosis or anything, not for shame or anything. It comes up in general conversations and whatever, but it's felt hard to just be like, ta-da, like let's say on social media or something, because there is that fear of people being like, oh, blah, 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 like you don't seem this or that. So it would be.
And stimulus overload for you.
Yes.
It's Pandora's box.
Yes. It's.
By the way, I have autism. And then even friends, well-meaning,
Will just
family,
say
they're like,
weird
now you
things.
got to answer 100 questions.
So many things. And it's
You
just a
probably
lot.
don't
It's
want to. It's
easier
like,
to
yes,
do it.
yes.
Yes, it's easier to do it in person where you can just be like, oh, did you know it looked like this? And I didn't know. But all these things that I like are big parts of who I am is because of this. And so, yeah, really to answer the question would just to be like, to break down a stereotype and to say this, to really help people understand the spectrum that it really is. And especially for women, because I think it's really hard out there for girls and women. They're just masking and it's so exhausting and they're going to reach their breaking point at some point. And I've been there many times. And so it's like, I will keep talking about it so I could just help one more, like mom or girl or whatever, because it's just like, yeah, we're kind of forgotten and overlooked in that way. And so I just want people to know that it can look so different than what they think it looks like.